I'm going to assume you can. So here's what I want to talk about: naming and shaming. Um, there's some stuff that's just been rolling through my head as I read paper after paper about this sort of thing. And let's actually put it in presentation mode. All right, there we go. Magic. Magic is happening. All right, so I want to talk about shame a little bit, but let's start at the beginning. All right, so naming and shaming is part of our actual national strategy, right? So this isn't something that I just decided to focus on today. It's something that you see us all do when we're doing cyber strategy. And you'll see it in like the cyberspace solarium paper, and you'll see it in things that we publicly talk about. You'll see it especially with regards to indictments and sanctions, and when we call out the SVB, or SVR rather. So here's just an example of some of the aspects of this. So you'll see it all over the place as a key part of our strategy. And I think it's one thing I've really noticed is that a lot of times our strategy is very split personality, in the sense that it's, one side of us is doing this kind of strategy and the other side is doing this, so we're pulling in different directions. But this is definitely something you'll start hearing about, and it's always rubbed me a little wrong because I'm like, something doesn't seem to be working. And part of what's not working is that like shame is a really powerful tool, and it's powerful because we are primates. And primates are very simple animals, I guess, and sort of they focus on these dominance hierarchies. And I mean, every primate is different, but the primates, especially that are closest to us, are just obsessed with status, So like you have a status and your child has, a similar status to you, maybe a little less. And it's just obsessive, compulsive status behavior. This is why you see political dynasties. This is why you see newspapers that focus on celebrities. It's why people buy ads or fake articles in SC magazine and stuff like that. We are, as a species, obsessed with status. Like, there's a reason we get huge dopamine hits when people click that like button, which, by the way, y'all should all do. Y'all should click the like button. Anyway, so I want to talk about a couple examples, like Positive Technologies, very recent example, sanctioned, was a partner with Microsoft and IBM. So they have like a pretty big name in the industry, like you would know them. Oh, look, someone smacked the like button. That's crazy. All right. Anyway, so you would say people know them. And I mean, we sanctioned them, and we've also talked about them, right? Like, so this Atlantic Council paper, which you can see here, this one here, they talk a lot about them, right? So they use a pseudonym, but I think we've kind of come to the realization that it is, in fact, Positive Technologies. So they've been named and pseudo-named and shamed. Like, this is a thing that has happened, right? So clicky, this little linky. All right, so next example. Alyssa Assange. I might be pronouncing that name wrong. The company's name was Zor, or Zor Security. I forget what Zor stands for. Her other name is Alyssa Shevchenko. So even this article in Recorded Future, which is owned by some company, I can't remember which, is sort of saying, oh, well, she's been credited by the DHS for assisting people, right? So something to keep an eye on. What they're saying about it was that her company was a supplier to the GRU, which was behind a bunch of stuff, right? So she's a supplier who worked as part of this, right? So that's, in theory, that's our attempt to shame. And there's two general shields to the name and shame, right? So you can either be shameless or be unshamed. They're a little different. Being shameless is sort of denying, making counter accusations, not really feeling the impact yourself. So this is a defense of you just simply not being shamed. And then this one is when the community that you are part of a social structure in does not go along with the shamer, right? So this is when you as a target do not actually receive the shame. And I think this is what makes it so complicated, is because so much of this is about the community that you are part of and that the shamer is a part of, and the status levels that we are also obsessed with within that community. So I think those are the two main defenses. And I like to analyze this. And I don't think our strategy is taking this into account. So when you read a cyberspace solarium paper and they talk about naming and shaming, and you're like, does that work? Does that not work? If it doesn't work, I think it would be because we are not taking this whole idea of what are the defenses into account. So let's talk about one of the failures, right? So like, this is what the United States Treasury said about Positive Technology. They said, Positive Technology is a Russian IT security firm that supports Russian government clients, including the FSB. Right? So, and what I like to do in my head is just turn it around and like pretend it was an American firm that supported the NSA, right? Is that shaming? Not yet, right? Positive Technologies provides computer network security solutions to Russian businesses, foreign governments, international companies, and hosts large-scale conventions that are used as recruiting events for the FSB and GRU. And here already is a problem, right? Because like this does not implicate Positive Technologies in perfidy, right? Like it's sort of like, are they doing it because these are recruiting events for FSB and GRU, or does the FSB and GRU happen to exist in Moscow where these events are held, right? So that's a question you have. Positive Technologies was also designated today for providing support to the FSB, right? So it's sort of like very dry. It's a very dry accusation. And what Positive Technologies says back is, as a company, we deny the groundless accusations. So they're denying it. They're saying, here's our global mission. They're doing it in very good English, by the way. Our technologies are used by everybody. And that's the way they're saying it is, we are a part of this community. Our technologies are used by everybody, and we're very successful. And we are known to the global cybersecurity community as visionaries and leaders in ethical security research, right? So that's them pointing out that their status, they're like, our status is above your status. That's what they're trying to say. And then here's their open letter to the research community. Hey, guy, we appreciate your support. She's like, this is them claiming victory, essentially. They're like, we have received many words of encouragement, comments on social media, etc. We appreciate your support. It means a lot to us. And then, we've done a lot of things. We are very high status. We will only announce new, all of this stuff is a pushback, right? So if you're going to announce that you're on the field, you have to look at the pushback. Now let's talk about another fail. This is zero to initiative. So Alyssa Assange is a researcher with great technical talent, and she won ZDI's 2020 Pwn to Own. Now ZDI said, it's a partial win because they already had been reported. Now everybody in the community is like, well, that's a giant pile of crap, right? It's just unfair. That's an unfair way to run a contest. They're like, it's great work. We're thrilled she broke ground as the first woman to participate as an independent researcher in the Pwn to Own history. Now, this is after she's been sanctioned, like at least a year after she's been sanctioned, multiple years after she's been sanctioned. And let's look at what happens. Is like Katie Mazuris, another well-known person in the community, says, I'm glad they're offering, but it's an arbitrary percentage because they, ZDI was like, we will pay 50% of the fee or whatever. So she's saying, I will pay the difference between what you should have been paid and what you got, right? So, and you can see the rest of the community here is like 50%. I admire how you're handling this so gracefully. It's a big deal. You should get everything, right? So the community, at least on Twitter, is pro Alyssa, right? So, and then Alyssa responds, Katie, you're amazing. She's engaged, right? Like this, all of this, the girls who see that you won should appreciate what you've done, right? Now, Alyssa also said, in response to this question here, which I'm going to zoom in on, Brindley goes, this is another well-known researcher named Amy. Burnett. He said, wasn't Amy the first woman in Pwn to own? Great work to Alyssa, though, right? So, hey, by the way, he's not responding to Alyssa, he's responding to ZDI. And Alyssa says, not really. Amy's real name is Nick, and she participated as a guy. All right, so that's the start here. And she quotes what happened with ZDI. Now, Amy comes back and says, I participated under my dead name for various personal reasons, including a lot of other things that are not relevant, whatever, it doesn't matter. And Katie then pulls back and says, look, that was a very hurtful comment. I hope you've taken some time to reflect on that, right? So, and she donated to a different organization that supports trans women of color. This is not irrelevant. That's the thing about this, is it's not irrelevant that Alyssa is still part of the community, right? So where is the shame that we have where is the opprobrium that you would expect to have happened when you sanction someone, right? So it's a question that I ask our government. So I'm going to bounce through these. So here's the first conclusion that you could just, if you were just an outside analyst, you could be like, the community is not behind us, right? So if we, as the U.S. government, announce a sanction, the community is not behind us. We are lower status than people in the community that we are trying to sanction. Or some other reason. We don't have the ability to be believed. That's another possibility, right? So there's a failure to shame. That's one conclusion. But conclusion two is my more important conclusion, which is we are exposed. Our strategy is exposed. Our attacks are leaving us open because this could have turned around on us so hard. And we got really lucky because had Alyssa stuck with, it's important to promote women in cybersecurity, and then followed up with the U.S. government, in fact, erred in sanctioning me and is, in fact, discriminatory against women, et cetera, right? There is an attack here that she could easily have done that would have damaged our legitimacy because we are not giving out the details. We are not saying why she's sanctioned. We say she supported something, but that could mean many things, right? So when you sanction someone, you can be exposed because if people think you're doing it for the wrong reasons, you look terrible, right? So that is, the strategy has to work. So whether or not naming and shaming would work doesn't mean this way of doing naming and shaming works. So here's some suggestions, and I wanted to keep this down to like 10 minutes, right? Here's my suggestions. Better communication. Frankly, the fact that we do so little communication in this space is a problem if what we want to do is deter with shame. If shame is not part of this at all, if we are simply naming and sanctioning, then that's a different strategy, right? So that's, like our other nation. I just think it's weird. We need to figure this out. We don't react to events, right? We don't push back on social media. We don't release more information. We don't even seem to care what the community thinks. And that should be part of our strategy, in my opinion. And that also might mean choosing our targets carefully. And the other thing we can do is a little rougher, right? We can literally say part of our sanction is you are no longer allowed to be part of this community. You must literally leave. We're going to close your Twitter account. So that's another thing we could do. And I don't know if we've talked to Twitter and Facebook and YouTube and all these other places, GitHub, and said, look, you're no longer allowed to have communications with us in this way, right? So you as thing. I mean, at this point, I don't think no one I talk to can figure out if Alyssa got sanctioned or some random company that doesn't exist anymore got sanctioned. And if it's some random company that got sanctioned, what was the point of that? You know what I'm saying? So, I'm not trying to be mean, but I just want to know, I want our strategists, both here and abroad, to think about how this works and if it works. and not just do things to do them, because those things can leave us open to attack in ways, it's not, we're in a real scrap here, is and doing it badly is worse than not doing it in many cases. And I think the fact that we're not necessarily winning all of these is important. So anyway, that's my thoughts for Friday or Monday morning. I don't know what time it is. What day is it? That's all I had. Thank you so much for listening. That's it. Bye. Smack that like button or subscribe or whatever. I don't know how this works. I'm not a YouTube professional.